Hello, dream catchers, and welcome back to the 2018 National Book Club Conference. We are still in Atlanta, Georgia, enjoying this beautiful weather, as well as seeing some of our favorite authors come through the door, and we're capturing interviews with them, as well as interviews with some of the book club readers who are here. So we're going to jump right into our next interview. It is with author Edward Kelsey Moore. He is the author of The Supremes at Earl's All You Can Eat, as well as The Supremes Sing the Happy Heartache Blues. I love these names, and we're going to talk about The Supremes because I want to know who they are and why are they both featured in these two books. But without further ado, let's talk to our author here. So, how are you enjoying the NBCC this year?
I'm having a great time. I've met some wonderful people, and it's been a lot of fun.
Did you just come in today or last night? Have you been here the whole time?
I've been here the whole time. I came in Thursday night, and it's been great.
Okay, what do you find to be most beneficial as an author in coming to these events?
Well, right now, what I'm really enjoying is actually the pats on the back, and I'm writing a new book, and it's great to get a little bit of support from people and to hear from people that they're looking forward to what you do next and that they liked what you've done in the past. It's a really nice thing, and people have been incredibly kind.
Okay, well, let's talk about these award-winning books. So you first started writing when?
Well, I started writing when I learned to read, really, but I started completing the things that I wrote when I was about 40. So there was a bit of a lag there.
So, and you're a professional cellist as well. I just want to get this conversation out the way before we really, really get into the deepness of your books. So you started writing when you started reading, but you started writing professionally when you turned 40. But in between that lag, as you call it, you were a professional cellist. So tell us how you segued, or did you segue from being a cellist to being a professional writer? I'm not really sure timing-wise how that happened.
I'm still a cellist. I just don't play nearly as much as I used to, and I had to leave my teaching job. I had taught at a small college outside of Chicago for many, many years, and I had to leave that job when the first book, had.
Exploded on the scene.
I was going to put it that way, but if you want to, that's fine. No, but I just didn't have time anymore, and I play a lot less than I used to play over 100 concerts a year. Now I play maybe a couple of dozen at the most. And I'm still a cellist. I think I always think of myself as a cellist, and now I also think of myself as a writer, but in my heart of hearts, I think I will always be a cellist.
Okay, and so being a writer, and you turned 40, you started writing. You didn't self-publish any of your books, right? I mean, you went straight to being with a major. So talk to us about not really a transition, but going from writing to actually being picked up by a major.
Well, because that's the only thing I've known, I don't have a way of comparing it. I I didn't know what was going to happen. Of course, when you write a book, you don't know if anybody's ever going to read it, if it's going to be successful, or if people do read it, are they going to like it? You have no idea. And for me, I wrote the first book for myself because I wanted to. It was something I'd always wanted to do, and you get to a certain point in your life, and the things you want to do, either you're a person who actually does them, or you're a person who talks about doing them. Yes, I was trying to find a better the way. I usually put it much more bluntly. I'm trying to find a nice way to put it. But yeah, you're a person who talks about it, or you're a person who does it. And I didn't want to be a person who just talked about it. So when the book was finished, I did the same thing that everybody does. I thought, okay, who can I send it to? I had some good fortune in that I had gone to a workshop. A very famous author, Julia Glass, had read the first few chapters of the book, and she was very, very positive about it. And she actually made some introductions for me to a couple of agents, one of whom liked the book, and it took off from there. And so I ended up with the first book at Knopf, and it's been a very lovely experience.
So before we get into your process, I do want to talk about the titles of your book and the significance of them.
Well, the Supremes of my book are my two books are three close friends from a small town in southern Indiana. It's a fictional town called Plainview, and they've known each other since they were little girls. And wanted I wanted a word that I thought would, for most readers, encapsulate what it meant to be a sort of a trio of black women who meet in the 60s. And it seemed very natural for them to be called the Supremes. And that's the title stuck.
Okay, okay. So it's not really a comparison with the women of, I think, where were they from? Detroit? Okay. So this is a totally different Supremes. It's fictitious and it's not to be compared to in any way, shape, or form. Okay. All right, Dreamcatchers. I just want to get that out the way. Because I know some of you may have been wondering, as I was. So, all right, so let's talk about your process then in writing. Do you outline? Do you plot? Do you just jump in? How did you engage in the writing of both books? And then was it different for each book?
Well, so far, again, I'm working on just my third novel, but I do find that I do have a way of working, and it's not necessarily the way I want to work, but it's just the way that it happens. I do outline, and I write an outline, and then I actually do this whole process of writing every scene of the book on index cards, and then as I proceed, I move the cards around if I want to change the order of scenes. And what I found, I didn't have a writing education. And when I sat down to write the first novel, I realized that a big problem for me was going to be form. And so what I did was I used the forms that I knew. I know musical forms well. So I set it up as if I was writing a symphony. And there's a basic form. I won't go into the whole musicological thing, but there's a basic form that every first movement of every symphony follows. And it's called a sonata form. And so you get a theme, you get a counter theme, you get some stuff that interferes with the themes, and they wander off into different keys, and there's friction between the two keys, and then you get a resolution. And it's, I thought, well, I know how that works, so I'll do that with my characters. So each of the characters, a little more carefully in the first book because I was, again, I was desperate for some kind of form. In that first book, I thought, well, each of these women is going to live a symphony movement. And each is going to have their theme, each is going to have a counter theme, and then some trouble, and then we'll resolve it. And that was how I tried to write. Of course, it wandered off into different areas.
I love that. I mean, it's because you went to what you knew was the baseline of what you have learned as a musician, and you incorporated that into your writing. And the way that you described the writing and the ebbs and flows and and meeting the climax, I mean, it's totally how it works in literature. So to hear you say it from a musical standpoint just brought some illumination for me, and hopefully to our dream catchers as well who are watching. That's awesome. Okay, so
Use what you got, if you know how to do one thing, you try to apply it to as many things as you can.
yeah, that's great. Okay, so we've talked about your process. Now, when you fully went into the business of writing, you were actually with a publisher, so your experience would be different from that of a self-publisher where you had to fully embrace the marketing, the distribution, the printing. But given that you were with a publisher, how did you engage? What were some of the things that you made sure you were involved in, or it just became nature of the beast that you had to be involved in as you were marketing and distributing the book?
Well, for me, they being at a major publisher, one of the great things about it is that they have the resources to send you out to talk to people, and you end up going a lot of places. And so I went all across the country with both books, and then with the first book, I went to Europe also. So you get this opportunity to go and talk to a lot of people. For me, that's the best part of this whole thing. I I know that a lot of authors are very, very frightened of audiences, and it's a punishment for them. It's a thing that they have to do. For me, it's the opposite. For me, sitting alone in the room I actually write by hand, so just sitting alone in a room with a bunch of pads of paper and a pen is the hard part. The reward is going out and talking to people. So that part of it I absolutely love, and it's a lot of fun. And that's for me the great advantage of having a major publisher.
Yeah, so true. So, in your process of writing, you mentioned that you handwrite, and I've heard a lot of writers talking about handwriting. I was going to ask you, do you use a software package like Scrivener or something like that? But no, you handwrite probably in a journal type or.
I get pads of legal pads, and I write, and then of course I go then to the computer. But I think largely it's a function of my age. If I had, it is, I started my first novel. I was almost 50 when I began that. So if I were a younger man or woman, I'm sure I would feel much more comfortable at a keyboard. But for me, writing flows from my hand, and also I think being a musician that enters into it also. But there's a much more of a connection between my brain and my hand than between my brain and a keyboard.
Just curious, being a musician, I've heard a lot of writers talk about listening to music while they're writing. Do you engage in that as part of your process?
I do. I listen to a lot of music, but I don't listen to my favorite music because that I start paying attention to it. So I listen to things that I don't really know. What I usually do is I put on a folk music stream, and so I end up with this sort of mellow music that I like, but it's not usually going to draw my attention away from what I'm doing.
Okay, so no LL Cool J, no Beyonce, no.
Because then you're just sitting there, and it's. I also don't listen to classical music. I love classical music. I don't listen to that either. But I don't listen to soul. I don't listen to classical. Those are my favorite kinds of music. And the writing will stop because I'll put the pen down and just listen. So.
Okay, I get that totally. So, what upcoming projects do you have? Can you talk about them?
A little bit. I'm working on a novel right now that's the story of a brother and sister, and about their neighborhood. It's a family that was brought up in a black suburban neighborhood in the Midwest, and it's a story of the connection that this family has had to this neighborhood for 3 generations, but mostly focusing on this brother and sister.
Okay, that sounds awesome. So, as part of our season 3 segment or series, we are changing things up a little bit, and we're asking author reveal questions so that our readers and dream catchers can get a better sense of who you are, the person. So I only have 2 questions to ask you and get your thoughts. Who are you reading now?
I'm reading Terry Jones, An American Marriage.
Did you meet her yet? She's here.
I haven't finished it. Sorry, did I meet her yet?
Yeah.
I have not met her yet. I'll meet her later this afternoon, I think. We are sitting on a panel together. I'm really looking forward. I am loving that book. And so, and I haven't finished it yet, so I'm very.
So I won't tell you anything, but you're right. It's such an awesome, awesome book. You know how I couch my experience with it when I read it? It's like a love letter to the soul. Yeah, I mean, as you know, there's letters in it, but the entire book for me was just a love letter for the soul.
Beautiful, beautiful writing.
Wonderfully written.
I'm jealous.
Yes, we all are. We all are. And so we're going to tape an interview with her as well. So we'll really kind of unpack how her writing journey and how she got to An American Marriage.
That she knows. You tell them.
It'll be televised. It'll be televised. So you're reading Tayari Jones. Okay, excellent. And what is your greatest accomplishment as a writer?
Well, I'll tell you. I've been very, very fortunate with my work. And I've gotten, some prizes and some very nice things have happened with my books. But the best moment for me was when I finished my first short story and put it in the mail. That, because I had been trying for decades to finish something. I don't know, I just couldn't get myself to sit down and get to the end. Something, it could be, if I had some work, if I had a concert, if I had students who needed something, it could be a Adams Family marathon on TV, anything that could.
That'll distract you.
Yeah, and I was easily distracted. And finally, I had a goal. I was entering this short story contest that Chicago Public Radio had, and I finally got myself a year after. Well, I intended to do it 1 year, and what happened was what always happened for me. I would start it, and I would be all excited about it, and then I get distracted. And 1 year, I had this goal of entering that contest, and I did the usual. About a month after the contest, I got hired for a gig to play a string quartet, and I got to the gig and found out that the gig was a celebration of the winners of that contest. And I thought, somebody's trying to give me a message here. And the next year, I gave myself a full year to finish anything still. But the next year, I entered the contest, I finished the story, and I mailed it. And the finest moment for me of my entire writing career is the walk from my front door with that envelope to the mailbox. Still, nothing else is compared. The bestseller lists here and abroad, the film options, all those sorts of things have been lovely, but the best thing still is the way I felt walking from my house to the mailbox. I remember every step of that walk. It was incredible.
That's awesome. Now, I heard film options. I didn't get that as part of your bio. Can you talk about that?
Just a little bit. The first book was optioned by Fox Searchlight quite a while ago, and there's been some news that has happened lately that I can't really talk about. But yeah, things look good in that way.
Great, great. And so that experience overall, because I don't know if you're familiar with Victoria Christopher Murray, who just recently had her books, the Seven Deadly Sins series that she's working on. She's only written 3 of the books, but they optioned all 7 to Lifetime, and T.D. Jakes is going to be producing that. And so she talked to me a little bit last week about that experience. The experience for you, and I understand you can't really go into the throes of the of what happened, but just that experience of being an author. You didn't go into this thinking, oh, I want my books in movies or made for TV television, or maybe you did. I don't know.
No, my big hope for my writing career was that I might get some small publisher to publish my novel, and that I would put copies of the book in my 20-year-old Volvo, and I would drive around and beg people to read it. That was really the big hope. I thought, oh, that would be the dream. And what happened was something else. So no, movies and that sort of thing were not in my mind.
Yeah, but that's always great when that happens, and that's happening more and more for writers. There are a lot of production houses that are looking for really, really great literature to produce. So that's a great thing for us. That's a great thing for us as writers. Any advice for any aspiring writers who are looking, they're on their writer's journey and they're looking to get possibly where you are in yours?
What I always tell people is finish it. That's the thing. Most people, that's the part that they can't quite get. Just finish it and then see what happens.
Well, thank you so very much, Edward, for being on the show and sharing the highlights of your book. I'm very excited to have you on the show, and to also I'm going to sit in on the panel discussion that's going to happen later that you're going to be sitting in on. Could you tell us a little bit about what that discussion is going to be on?
I actually don't really know.
Well, I know it has
Surprise me.
Well, I heard through the grapevine that it's going to be about how published authors, basically the experience in the publishing houses now with authors, and just kind of talking about the changes, because there's really been a lot of changes. Amazon had a lot to do with that, and other segments. Other publishing houses, that on-demand publishing way of getting your book out. So I think, or at least I heard, that's what some of the discussion is going to be on. And I think there's going to be a lot of people in attendance for that, because a lot of people want to hear from those who are actually published by these major houses, what their experience is and how their career has changed, possibly with the changes that's been going on in the industry. So, yeah. That's what I heard. I heard that yesterday, but it could have changed from then. So I'm looking forward to sitting in and hearing your thoughts, as well as the others who are going to be on that panel. And I thank you again for being on the show. And Dreamcatchers, that wraps this particular interview with this dynamic author. And let me pull out your books again. The Supremes at Earl's All You Can Eat. So hold that one for me. And the Supremes Sing the Happy Heartache Blues. Available now wherever books are sold. And we'll see you next time in the Haven. And until then, catch fire on purpose.
Oh, yeah, yes. So much fun. Mwah. Yeah, Dad. We're getting so wet.
Everybody has a dream. Mine was to see the ocean. And with a little help, I made it.
This is the moment I knew his future had no boundaries.
There are some moments only the forest can inspire. Find yours at discovertheforest.org.
Hey, you.
Yeah, you. Getting that college education. What are you gonna do? Graduate and take some office job? Be like everybody else?
Or will you dare do something different?
Like, be a teacher. You could be my teacher. You got the skills, the smarts.
Yes, you.
You could be the teacher I never forget.
That'd be cool.
Does that corporate job even have recess? What are you gonna make of yourself?
What are you gonna make of me?
Did you know dragging chains can spark a wildfire?
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Open up your books to page 360.
Did you just look at your phone while you was in class? You played yourself.
Talking about inspirational quotes.
You gotta believe in yourself. Don't ever play yourself. The key is to make it, so make it.
Louise, can you give me an example of an inspirational quote?
Don't play yourself. The key is to make it.
And who said that?
I did. Now that's a major key alert.
Learn the real major keys to getting to college at getschool.com.
Green hat. Red hat. Oops. Red shirt. Blue shirt. Yellow shirt. Oops. Yellow pants. Red pants. Green pants. Oops.
Don't wait. Communicate. Make your emergency plan today.
There are 16 million children struggling with hunger in America. That's 1 in 5 daughters, sons, neighbors, and classmates who don't know where their next meal is coming from. Yet billions of pounds of good food go to waste every year. It's time we do something about it. Feeding America is a nationwide network of food banks that helps provide meals to millions of kids and families in need. Visit feedingamerica.org to help them feed even more. Together, we can solve hunger. Together, we're feeding America.
The color in my garden keeps the pink in my cheeks. I was very independent and thought I could take care of myself. I fell and I had to have Meals on Wheels. They're my savior. My name is Lola Silvestri. America, let's do lunch.
Drop off a hot meal and say hello. Volunteer by donating your lunch break at americaletsdolunch.org.
Look at you. You're at the top of your game. You're unstoppable. Nothing can throw you off track. Wait, is that your car? Uh-oh. Yeah, I saw that coming. That will throw you off track. You're looking at around 10 grand in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates. Let's try this again. Smart move. Because buzz driving is drunk driving.
Oh, yeah, yes. So much fun. Mwah. We're getting so wet.
Everybody has a dream. Mine was to see the ocean. And with a little help,